In the man cave, the man who he gets this close and then just Bronwyn goes in for the kill. Stephen Conroy, he's here to help as always, and Bronwyn Bishop, the carryover champ. Lovely to see you. So, let's talk about the tariffs, the failure to do so, and again, my suggestion there about how Albo plays the next few weeks, trying to sort of leverage Trump's standing in Australia and the Dutton mini-Trump of it all, no matter how unfair all of that is. Bronwyn, why didn't we get an exemption and who's to blame?
Well, we didn't get an exemption for a whole host of reasons, I suspect. And I think a lot of it has got to do with our behaviour in the United Nations with regard to Penny Wong. I think also with regard to watching the way the Albanese government has handled tariffs and China literally kowtowing and saying, what else can we give you so we can sell you some wine and some lobsters? And then when we get our airmen or our naval divers attacked by China, we say nothing. We find warships going around our country. We don't even know they're there. And we see Albanese come out and apologise and explain why it's really okay for them to be a threat. And I think they see that as an enormous weakness. And I think all those things have played into it. And I think the contrast between the way the government has tried to handle the tariffs with regard to the United States and the way it's handled tariffs with regard to China tells us that all those things that have worried me forever, that Albo is happy to be the let's come on, China will be a vassal state if you like, whereas with the United States it's a partnership. We're saying we want to have a defence, and he won't even come to the party and say 3%.
So, Stephen, what does it say if you can get a better deal out of China and you can't get it out of America?
Well, I think Trump has got his own agenda, and we've just got to get used to the change paradigm that he's bringing in both economic and foreign policy. And it isn't like it's just Australia that's being harmed as a close ally. The UK has been attacked. He's attacked Starmer. NATO he's attacked. If you talk to Europeans now, they don't believe that Donald Trump will actually follow through on Article 5, the most critical part of the NATO agreement. You see him attack Canada. I mean, how is it possible to have a fight with Canada? I am still trying to understand on what basis he is making the attack on China. I mean, he's ripped up the NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. He has now ripped up Australia's US, and I helped negotiate this from opposition when I was in Parliament, the US Free Trade Agreement with Australia. He's now ripped it up, but he's ripping up all of these things across the world. And it doesn't matter whether he used to be America's best friend. He is about, in his view, reshaping the debate, reshaping the world to his perspective. Whether the rest of all think it's economically crazy, you know, people are now looking at the 1930s saying, America tried this
Stephen, that's
tariff war.
It's very interesting, but you missed the point. What has the Albanese government done about handling a very difficult situation, and how does their behaviour get judged in the real world that you're describing now?
The real world is Australia do have to do more on the defence.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
But let's be clear.
We're down to 1.9%.
Trump spent 4 years telling Europe stop being dependent on Russian oil and Russian energy supplies.
Correct.
And you know, they've been caught out negotiating with the Russians in secret
They bought more of it.
to rebuild the pipeline that got blown up. So he is actually now trying to re-addict Europe. He is negotiating with the Russians to rebuild the pipeline, to re-addict Europe.
Stephen, this is a very interesting take on American European.
But okay, but what about
us?
But what about the rud of it all? What about the elbow of it all? That we all know. I know it as just a bloke on the TV, right? Trump's about relationships. He's about familiarity. We know that there are some ins here. We know that there are very significant Australians that are very significant supporters who've been to Mar-a-Lago plenty. We have a former Prime Minister in Scott Morrison who spent New Year's Eve with him. We have a former Prime Minister in Kevin Rudd who literally was dressing up, stalking him at a golf course as a meeting that under Senate estimates the Foreign Affairs Department had no details of, no data of. We've got a Prime Minister who, yes, gets a phone call at the start. He gets referred to as a wonderful person and then no follow-up afterwards. Why didn't they put the work in? And, Stephen, is it fair to say They didn't put the work in between November. The great system about America is you know who's won the election. They don't take over till January. Get off your dot and go to their house and see them.
So, some gossip that has been put to me is that, to be fair, and we all know how relentless Kevin Rudd can be, okay? We've all witnessed it. We've all been party to it, okay? My understanding is he, just like the Prime Minister's been trying to do over the last few days, did reach out to Mar-a-Lago. He did attempt to
But
get
it's
in
all
touch.
too late.
And they just wouldn't take his
It's all
calls
too
as
late.
well.
There was a very
No,
good
I'm saying
interview,
from when he was-
that one of yours,
No, but I'm-
Stephen Loosely, gave the other
There's
day.
that
saying
pre-game.
There are a whole lot of people who are very pro Australia in the Congress who do get the ear of Donald Trump.
Correct.
And these are the areas where concentrated effort should have been put. There's a whole lot of diplomacy that could have been exercised, but with the players in the field, and I've got to say, I think Penny Wong's one of the worst in the field in making relations worse than they ever needed to be, has put us on the back foot. Now, when the spokesman came out today and said, yes, it was on the table to consider Australia being exempt, but it's been denied. So what happened between the statement being made, yes, we're going to consider it, and no, it's off the table? That's the
Trump
bottom
has
line.
attacked every
No, it doesn't
single
matter. It doesn't
one
matter.
of
He
the
didn't-
traditional
he didn't
allies.
say
He's
that.
attacked Canada.
He did not.
He's
He
attacked
did
the
not
UK.
say to any
He's
other
attacked the-
other country that we are considering giving you an exemption. Not one. Only Australia. Now, who blew it from being on the table
Trump
to being
never
done?
had any intention.
well, you can't
never
say
had,
that, Stephen.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
He was polite because
No,
it
you
was their
can't.
one-off first
And
conversation. We all know how the
he
dance
is not
works.
polite.
And
He doesn't have to
we
be
all
polite.
know how the dance works. On the first call, everyone's polite, says nice things about everybody else.
No.
But he never
Not when the
had
bloke who's on the
any
phone and won't get on the
intention.
plane is the bloke who's been bagging him off. That doesn't work that way.
And also, I think
He's
they failed
appointed
to.
half his
And
cabinet
it's
of people
just,
who've bagged
and
him off.
it's just too easy, Stephen, to
Half
say,
the cap-
oh, we didn't get it because it was never
the
going to be on
Donald
the
Trump
table.
also-
wannabe,
You
Peter
lost
Dutton.
before you
Oh, all right, you've opened the door now.
Okay. Peter Dutton desperately wants
Listen,
to be
if-
Donald Trump, but he knows he can't get away with it. in
Okay.
Australia.
If Malcolm Turnbull
Desperately
could have
wants
done
it.
it, believe me, Peter Dutton could.
All right, let me get off the fence now. Oh, not off the fence, off the bench. He wants to be Peter Donald Trump.
He is desperate
I've
to
explained
run his agenda.
I've said 100 times that he said he's not right. He cops it from the right for staying on net zero, for staying in Human Rights Council, a whole collection of things, and not tearing up Paris, all the rest of it. Right. So there's plenty of people already starting to sort of echo, and I think this is them taking out insurance in case he doesn't win. By the way, people do that sometimes. That he's not pure enough. Right. The Goldilocks of it all, but. There is something to be said about Donald Trump standing in Australia. Now, I'm pro-Trump, right? But that's not the majority position in Australia. So for Albanese, is he going to try to play this game of constantly saying, you're Trump, you're Trump, you're Trump, you're Trump, as a way of dirtying up somebody who's being criticised for not being Trump enough?
Just because the right-wingers want to try and drag him to the climate, cancellation argument, doesn't mean that Dutton himself doesn't desperately want to ape Trump. He just knows that he will lose more votes if he does. He is caught in that no man's land. He's his own man.
Rubbish.
He is gagging.
His own man.
He's gagging to want to be Donald Trump. Like you keep trying to tell him to be.
Unlike Albo, who's even worse than Starmer.
He is ignoring your advice.
I mean,
you desperately want him to adopt the Trump policies.
Albo's
I hope you win.
Trudeau.
I hope you win the argument. I hope you drag Dutton into the Trump camp.
No.
Because you'll kill him.
I'm not doing that.
But Australians deep down
saying
he really
Dutton
wants to be.
No, he doesn't.
That's why they don't want to elect him.
Rubbish. They do want to elect him.
They just actually did a news poll that said they don't want to elect him.
All right.
They don't want him.
They must have been
They're not
talking to
ready
you,
to form
Stephen, in the
government.
poll.
Look, I won't say it's ever easy to do my job, but that was pretty easy.